Coming up ahead and to our left is the incredible Tower of London. It's actually a fortified castle built by Norman French King William the Conqueror after he won the crown in 1066.
He built the White Tower, the largest building with the 4 spires in the centre, all the way back in 1097 to demonstrate his power to his new subjects.
And it was a palace too.
Oh yes, one famous resident at the palace was Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife, who stayed in the luxurious royal apartments here before her coronation as queen in 1533.
But when she fell out of favour, she was executed in the tower on charges of adultery and treason.
Since the 1660s, the tower has housed the British Crown Jewels, which are kept under armed guard in the tower. But it is now open to the public, and visitors can come and admire the beauty of both the Crown Jewels and the tower itself.
Now, the Tower of London has had a fascinating and exciting history, so it's only right that it gets its own special guard to protect its treasures and its stories.
That's certainly what Henry VIII thought, and he insisted that a section of the royal bodyguards, the yeoman warders, should remain on watch guarding the tower, a tradition that continues to this day. Buddy, tell us about them.
Well, these yeoman warders, made up of a select group of men and women from the armed forces, wear a distinctive red, white and yellow uniform. They are often called beef eaters because, rumour has it, they were allowed to eat as much beef from the table as their tummies would hold. When a new yeoman warder is recruited, the chief yeoman warder welcomes them with the words, "May you never die a yeoman warder." In fact, all new recruits must take an oath of royal allegiance that dates back to the 14th century. They must have at least 22 years of military service, and they guard the tower along with our famous ravens.
Ah, finally, the ravens. The tower has its own ravens and an official keeper of the ravens, and legend has it that if the ravens ever leave, the tower and the kingdom will fall. Did you know?
In 1661, a gentleman called Colonel Blood tricked his way into Jewel House in the Tower of London and stole some of the crown jewels. Unluckily for Colonel Blood, he was caught and taken before King Charles to face his punishment. Luckily for Colonel Blood, the king was so impressed with the colonel's audacity that he not only let him go, he gave him land and made him a member of his court. If you like churches and Roman history, then you should definitely visit All Hallows Church, which is close to the Tower of London. In 1666, it survived the Great Fire of London, and Samuel Pepys actually watched the fire from the top of the church tower.
Yeah, I've been. It's the oldest church in the city, isn't it?
It is! It's been around since 675 AD, and there's evidence of life from this site dating back 2,000 years. Incredible! It's great as you can go into the Undercroft where they have this museum and you can see an actual section of Roman pavement. There is also a section of Roman wall close to Tower Hill Underground Station.
Isn't it written in the All Hallows Church Register that an American president was married there?
Well remembered! It was the 6th President of the United States, John Quincy Adams.
Oh, thanks, Tally. That was great.
I know.
Humble as ever.
I know.
Now, we've talked about the British Crown Jewels, which are safely stashed away in the Tower of London. But what exactly are they? Well, let me give you the list. They include the Imperial State Crown for state occasions, the St. Edward's Crown, which is used to crown the new monarch at the coronation ceremony, a scepter which contains the largest colourless cut diamond in the world, a golden orb with a cross that represents the monarch's divine power, and
A golden spoon, so the monarch can be anointed with oil during the coronation. The crown jewels are the nation's most precious treasures, and their immeasurable historical and cultural value makes them quite literally priceless.
one controversial item in the collection is the diamond of Koh-i-Noor, which was taken from India by the British in 1949. The Indian government has in fact asked for it to be repatriated, and the tower now displays it as a symbol of conquest alongside other controversial jewels from the collection.
During your big bus adventure through the City of London, you may see some large dragons placed on plinths. They are there to mark the boundary of the City of London from the rest of London. There are 13 of them around the city, all displaying a shield bearing the City of London's crest. Keep a lookout for them, and if you see one, shout, "Dragon!" Let's have a practice. Ready? Dragon! Louder next time. Keep a lookout. There be dragons.
In the East End of London is an area called Whitechapel, which in Victorian times had a reputation for overpopulation and extreme poverty. It was a dangerous and unsanitary place, where people often relied on charity and criminality to support their families. People did what they had to do to survive, and this deprivation forced many women into prostitution. It's reckoned that in 1880s London there were over 60 brothels in Whitechapel alone. In 1888, several prostitutes were brutally murdered, and terror reigned throughout the East End. Taunting letters were sent to the police, believed to be from the killer, and one of the letters was signed Jack the Ripper. Despite their investigations, the killer's identity remains a mystery to this day.
Today, life in Whitechapel has moved on a long way. In fact, the area has become synonymous with London's art scene and is home to a prominent Bangladeshi community. The historic Whitechapel Art Gallery calls itself the Artists' Gallery for everyone, and Whitechapel is one of the only places in England where the street names are written in 2 languages. Well worth a look.
You can also visit the Brick Lane Mosque, which, in typical London style, has gone from being a Protestant church to a Jewish synagogue to a mosque. As you journey across London, you'll experience a city that is ever evolving, and Whitechapel is no exception.
Hello! We'll soon be passing through a short tunnel. For your own safety, please remain seated at all times when the bus is moving. I hope you're enjoying your big bus adventure. Thanks!
Now, there are plenty of things we Brits are rightly proud of. We invented the steam engine, we created the tin can, and the World Wide Web. But the thing we're most proud of, and never ever get bored of telling people, is that England won the World Cup in 1966.
Ah, football, the beautiful game. The rules of the modern game were written in England in the middle of the 19th century, and the world's first and now oldest club, Sheffield FC, was founded in 1857. They're still playing to this day, just behind the Coach and Horses pub in Dronfield.
Londoners are very proud of their football clubs, and there are plenty to choose from. Does anyone on the bus support Arsenal?
Yeah!
Chelsea?
Yeah!
How about Hampton and Richmond FC? Hey! No? Anyone? Only me then.
It seems that way, George. There are numerous non-league and amateur clubs, but when it comes to clubs in the top 5 English leagues in and around London, there were 17 at my last count. They are Arsenal, Barnet, Brentford, Bromley, Charlton Athletic, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Leyton Orient, Millwall, Queen's Park Rangers, Dagenham and Redbridge, Wealdstone, Sutton United, Tottenham Hotspur, Watford, West Ham United and AFC Wimbledon. Phew, apologies if I missed anyone.
Coming up on our right are the buildings and gardens of the Temple, the home of London's legal profession since the 1300s. Before the lawyers and barristers moved in, the area was home to the Knights Templar, who built the Temple Church here as their English HQ.
The Knights Templar was a religious order of knights originally formed back during the time of the Crusades, over 1,000 years ago. You might know them from Dan Brown's novel, The Da Vinci Code.
If you glance across the river, you should spot the huge Oxo Tower. Look out for the Oxo sign. This famous London landmark was originally built in the 1800s as a power station for Royal Mail, but was partially demolished, then rebuilt for the company that makes Oxo stock cubes.
Oxo wanted to put up giant neon lights illuminating their brand across London's skyline. But when planning permission was refused, they hatched a cunning plan. They rebuilt the facade with 3 massive windows, one designed as a circle, one as a cross, and then another circle. And that spells Oxo. Clever, huh?
For those of you who have recently joined our big bus adventure, we have just got to tell you more about London's River Thames, as without it, there would be no London.
That's right, George. The Romans who first settled here in 43 AD headed upriver and built a trading post and a bridge across the river, calling it Londinium.
The Thames back then looked completely different, and it is so tidal that the area around Westminster Palace and the Abbey was its own island called Thorney Island. Today, the river is contained by its embankments, but at low tide, you can still see people down on the exposed banks sifting through the mud for buried treasure.
Someone once found a 400-year-old sword.
In the 17th and 18th centuries, it was common for the River Thames to freeze over in the winter, and when it did, Londoners would host frost fairs on the frozen water. The ice was sometimes thick enough for them to play football, build pop-up pubs, and even light fires to keep warm. It also wasn't uncommon for the Thames to flood London either. The East End was severely hit in 1928, and sadly, many people lost their lives. The Thames Barrier was later built in 1984 to protect the city from future devastation.
Coming up by the river is the oldest outdoor and perhaps the most bizarre monument in London. It's Cleopatra's Needle. The Egyptian obelisk is an incredible 3,500 years old. It was gifted to this country by an Egyptian ruler to say thank you to Admiral Nelson for beating Napoleon's fleet at the Battle of the Nile in 1798.
It's enormous! How on earth do you get that here from Egypt?
The Victorians built a cigar-shaped ship around the monument.
And there's a Victorian time capsule buried underneath it.
There is indeed, and when it was dug up, they found loads of things, like 10 daily newspapers and a picture of Queen Victoria, and bizarrely, 12 photographs of English beauties of the day.
Take a look across the River Thames to the South Bank and you'll see the magnificent London Eye. It's a real London icon made up of 32 glass pods that go round and round and round at a leisurely 0.9 kilometres or 0.6 miles an hour. That way you get 30 minutes of uninterrupted and amazing views of the city.
It's a fantastic way to take in the London skyline, seeing the city from a whole new perspective. On a clear day, you can see for a staggering 40 kilometres or 25 miles. It also acts as a stunning backdrop for London's New Year fireworks. The London Eye was actually built as a temporary attraction for the millennium in 2000. But as you can see, it's still standing strong. It's 135 metres in height, and if you were to roll it out flat and stand it on its end, it would be taller than the Empire State Building.